In today's video, I'm going to demonstrate how to install a subway tile with a decorative glass mosaic strip using my laser level. Alright, for closing up our shower, we're going to be using a 4x12 glossy ceramic tile. This is a brilliant product because it has lots of flexibility, great style, and easy to install as long as you can get your first row level. That is why it's very important to have your laser level handy. I can't preach enough about this. It's a tool that every homeowner should have in their toolbox. So before we get started, one quick tip. Make sure that you've peeled back your protective layer of plastic off your top ledge. You don't want to let that get caught underneath your tile, or that will end up causing you problems down the road. And always have a pail of water with a sponge handy. I like to clean as I go. It just makes my life a lot easier. And if you're doing this professionally for people, every time they pop their head around the corner and see you working, it is so encouraging for them to see a nice clean job site. So the beginning of a tile job is always the same. It's called mapping it out. You need to think about how you're installing your tile. Now, our basic direction here is to start with a 50% offset. So it's a typical subway pattern, just a offset from the stack in the middle. So what we want to do is first measure our back wall off and put a center line on. And this back wall should be 59 inches. And so that should leave us at 29.5, which is right here. So the process here is simple. We just take a couple of tiles. We start with a grout line on the center line, and we work towards the outside. And you'll see that we are left with about a half a tile. That is brilliant. And because we're staggering 50%, every other row will be half tile, full tile. And of course, the same math, if we start in the middle of the tile, we'll be left with a full tile at the outside. So what I'm doing is I'm checking to see how level my wall is all together. And I'm going to be good there. So if I use that as my starting row right there, and then I cut a bunch of tiles in half, I can start building the entire back wall from this corner off that line. And that is brilliant. If you don't have a laser, you can always just use a regular level. But of course, this never lies. And okay, so in this case, the right side is pretty straight. The left side actually opens up. So this tells me that if I'm going to go with half offset, I should start in this corner, and then whenever I get to my end and I have to cut a tile, I can always cut it to fit without wrecking my pattern. So I've also set this up here. You can see the laser line in this wall here, Max. I'll get out of the way. This is the laser level we're going to use. Now, this tub is installed flush on the subfloor, and the house has got a bit of a dip, so the tub isn't exactly level. And that is not going to be a problem because this is the drain end. Now, I've got it set up for full tile here. As I come around the corner, you'll see that really soon, bam, right there, I'm already at my line. So, the way I map this out, and the reason I want the laser level here is I want to cut all of these pieces for the bottom row first to fit up against this laser level, and then I can use my wedge spacers and make sure I got a perfectly straight line here before I start building the wall. If you just start tiling and you've got a little slope, you're gonna have a hard time getting all your joints in the corners to line up because the tile will be sticking in every direction as it follows the slope. If you don't start level, you can't finish level. It may not look bad to you when you're sitting in here building it. When you walk in the room after you're all finished, it'll scream at you, hey, that's crooked. We don't want that. Now the easiest way to do this is just mark the wall, okay? And then you take a look at your laser level. And you can put your tile to your laser level over here, sorry, that wrong corner. There, and here. And when you put that on the tile cutter, you just line up the two lines on the cutting line, score and snap. So now that our tiles are cut and ready to build the first row, before we get started, we want to get our plastic edges on. This will determine what the actual outside measurement is going to be. And really the secret here is just get a little something you can press that edging into. All right, you can attach the rest of this later. There we go. Now we can just set up our laser, starting down at the baseboard, and you can just push that over until it's exactly where you want it to be. Very nice. Now you can see the tile that we've chosen here has got a beautiful honeycomb on the back of it, which means that I can go with a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel. This puts a really nice thick ridge on there. Great for collapsing those ridges and getting good adhesion. And the secret here is push that tile shut without a grout line. All right, and then you slide it into position. Now I've got a couple of different spacers here today. I've got a 1/8 spacer. I like subway tile with a little bit of gap and a little bit of grout. I just look, it's a lot more classic. And then these are wedges. All right, and these wedges are designed to help get this perfectly level and also create a little bit of a gap between the tile and the acrylic tub. Remember, acrylic, when it gets full of water, is going to be bending around a lot. So you don't want to have it in direct contact because it'll cause squeaking. So we just put a wedge underneath, create that airspace, and we can remove later before we grout. And you can also use it to level it. And then establish your space with your spacer for your grout line. There we go. It is that simple. Okay, so because we have our edging already installed, oh boy. Now, I like to take these little wax bits off as I go. I don't like to leave it until it's all the tiles installed in case there's an accident. Now, I'm going to be putting it tight to that and then marking -2 grout lines. All right? Hopefully, Matt, that'll cut okay. I got my son helping me today. He's doing all the cutting. No pressure. One of the reasons why I think subway tile is a perfect do-it-yourself job is because the tile is small enough, and because it's made of ceramic, it's very easy to cut. And you can use just a score tool, which puts a scratch and then pressure. It always snaps right on the line. Matt just did this one, and that's a really nice cut. That is really clean. All right, and you can do that. That tool's available at the building store for about $30. That's awesome. You can always get a wet saw as well, but for this tile, I would use the score tool almost exclusively, and then for around this area, just get a ceramic bit for your 4-inch grinder, and you can just use that wheel and cut any decorative hole you need. And that's about the only tools you'll ever need for this. There we go. Let's add our grout line. Now you see that the edge of this tub has a bit of a raise to it, which means that I'm not level. And that's what wedges are for. So I'm going to get that line level first based off my laser. And then I'm going to use my wedges to raise the rest of my line. So the reason I switched to laser level for doing my tile is because I would end up getting my level so filthy from always laying it in the mud, and I couldn't get a proper line unless I cleaned all the cement and started over again. It drove me nuts. So this way, I have a perfect line all around the entire tub, not just from corner to corner. And that helps make sure the job's perfect every time. Okay, so we just set up our laser level down here to have a look right on the edge of the tile. And so down here, I am just hovering above the stone. Okay, and then over as I come across, your eye will play tricks on you. I think that was level. It looked good. It was a straight line, but it wasn't a level line. So this is why these wedges are so awesome. I can actually make this adjustment until it is absolutely perfect. Okay. All right, so now we have our first row well established. I'm pretty happy with what's going on with it. Oh, my spacer came out. Remember, we already checked with our laser level, so we know that straight up is perfect. We cut a bunch of tiles in half, so we're going to just start with a half tile there. So now it's just like building a pyramid, right? You're going to get your cement on the wall. And this is going to be messier than when you're using an adhesive. So always have that pail and sponge handy. Clean as you go. Try to keep the extra cement out of the grout lines as much as you can. Just run your trowel along there like that, or even both your fingers, okay? What you're going to do is just place them right on the tile first. Okay. Start with 2 rows at a time here. So we just lift the tile, drop in our spacers, and because we've got the row all leveled off, just do the ends. You don't have to put them everywhere, just to support the tile to keep it from sliding around. Okay, and that's it. Now we want to straighten out our line here. Always put your cuts on the inside, of course. Press it in, lift it up, and do the spacer. Now, getting lots of cement where you need it. I like to start at the bottom and then lift it up, so I'm pulling the cement away from the grout line. And then just do over and over and over again. Start tight to the tile. Okay. This one slipped off the laser. And you can keep an eye on this and adjust it as you go. After about half an hour, these tiles on the wall are not going to be able to move anymore with this type of cement. Okay. So you got a little bit of time to play with this. Nice and tight. And the reason you go nice and tight, it's a great way to check to see if everything's square and level. If I put this on nice and tight, I got a huge gap. I know I've got to fix something, okay? So we're just going to set the space up. Now, for good measure, once we have our line here established, put these spacers back in too. And that'll make sure that all of your grout lines all over the wall are uniform. You don't have big gaps and little gaps opening up next to each other. That always looks unsightly. Now during the introduction, I mentioned that we're doing a subway tile with a glass mosaic. So now it's time to discuss the glass mosaic and why it's necessary. Most of the tile that's produced today is produced under the assumption that you're having a 5-foot shower, which is why these are just under 12 inches, plus the grout line, full 5 tiles across. Looks very aesthetically pleasing, easy to center, easy to install. Plus they're also made at a certain height so that on a traditional 20-inch tub, which is now the norm, and a regular 8-foot ceiling, it's just about a full tile at the top, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but nonetheless, it'll finish well with either a little grout or a little grind, and it'll look like a full tile after the silicone edge goes on. What you need to know is, what if your situation is a little bit different and it's going to be just a sliver? What if you end up with just 1 inch of tile left? What if your house is a little short, or you got a bulkhead, or you bought a shorter tub and the math doesn't work? How do you fix that? And this is what we do. There are bazillion options of mixed mosaic tile, different thicknesses, 1 square foot sheets like this with a reoccurring pattern, okay? What you can do is you just follow this simple procedure, and you can use your mosaic to make the adjustment on your finish before you get there. So you measure down from your ceiling. All right, we're just a little bit over under 32 inches. So I check, how's that gonna look? Well, I'm a little bit over 32 inches to a full tile. So the tile at the very top of the ceiling, well, we'll use this, I'm gonna end up cutting about this much off. In this particular situation, this tile and this tub work because I checked both sides already, and on the other side it's perfect, and on the side that's inside the house, it's actually got a little bit of a gap. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a cut line around the top, just like I did around the bottom, because remember I have a square house and it went and it fell in. So now I had to cut the bottom row on the tile to make it level. The top will get cut to be level and it'll work out. But if you had a problem with that and you were going from 0 to 1 inch filler, I'll guarantee you that 1 inch piece of tile would look like garbage. So I'm gonna back this up 1 row of tile. Instead of the 32, I'm gonna go to 28 1/4. And that'll give me all the room that I need. That's my mark. And I want to make my mosaic that thick. So now I take my sheet, and on the bottom I've got a thicker piece, up here I've got a thinner piece. I'm just saying, okay, so I need a grout line. If I use those, it's too much. If I go here, it's too much. If I go there, it's just right. Okay? What if I started at this end of the sheet? That's not enough. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the thick 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I've got a reoccurring pattern here. Thick 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means I'm going to get 2 linear feet per sheet. I bought a couple extra sheets because I know this usually happens. And then we are going to put in that much mosaic tile all around so that we finish with a full tile. And that is how you solve your problem. This is a great way to fill in the differences. If you're using large stone especially, you can put in 2 bands if you want. Now traditionally we put it at around 5 feet in the shower. Okay, so stand in the shower, measure up to 5 feet. It's kind of like line of sight in the bathroom, all right? So when you look around, the glass should be right in front of your eyes. That's all you need to know about mosaic tile. Of course, this is glass, so cutting this can be a little tricky. And maybe we should go to the saw and show you how to do that. So I'm going to demonstrate how to cut glass mosaic. If you have a wet saw, it's simple. Just set it on the table and slide it through. But if you don't and you're going to be using a grinder wheel, and this is fine, this is a nice porcelain grinder wheel. The trick here is actually cut from the back side. All right, it reduces the breakage and the chipping on the front of the glass and gives you a nice straight line. And because I'm going into a corner, I have to have a straight line. So I'm just going to eyeball a straight line off this short tile here. Now, okay, so what you'll see is I'm not cutting through it. I'm pressing down the middle of the tile and it's splitting. And watch this right here. You can see the grinder only came to this point and then it cut right off. Okay, we're going into a corner, the other glass will come against it, and then that is all you need to do. You have to do 1, 2, 3, probably 4 of these cuts for the entire mosaic strip. Other than that, the rest of these will fit together the way that it's on the sheet. Now, in order to cut a hole in the middle of the tile, and this is important because you're going to be putting your tub faucet here, and the tub faucet may or may not be big enough to cover this plus the grout line, and you don't want it to be a place where the water can get through. So it's important to cut just enough hole for the pipe to come out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just lightly touch on all 4 of these lines, okay? And then I'm going to finish the cut from the back side. And if you watch carefully, I'll show you how it's done, and then when I'm done doing it, I'll explain exactly how I did it. All right, so you'll see I've started the cut on the glaze, and then what I do is from the back side, I can see visually looking at this where the line is, and I use the grinder and just make just a quick line on the back of the stone. And that translates all that information to the back of the tile. Now I cut through from the back side. That gives me the ability to finish that cut without having the blade cross-cutting right into over the tile. And my tub spout connection will have no problem covering that. Okay, so right now we're going to talk about the Curdy Band T and this particular cement and why we're choosing this for our glass mosaic. The funny thing is, glass is usually heavier than ceramic, relatively speaking, and they come pre-attached to the back of the sheet. All right, it's an adhesive. Now, a lot of times these spaces that are in between this glass are different than the spacers that you're using on your wall. So for instance, we'll take one of these. Oops. And here's my 1/8 spacer. It barely makes it in there. But if I try to put it in between all of these tiles, it actually doesn't fit. Over all these 4 joints, this joint spacing is actually something like 2/15 instead of 2/16. It's a little bit strange. So the spacers are useless. I can't use them. So if I'm building a wall like this and I put in my mosaic strip, I can use a spacer on the bottom and I can stop there and I can wait till tomorrow to come back when it's dry. Or I can use the right cement that's going to hold it up there even without spacers, and it's not going to slip. I know it sounds ridiculous, but when you go to the hardware store, you're stuck. You have usually 3 choices of cement. There's a modified, a non-modified. Modified means it has a glue in it. And then there's an ultralight, which is good for putting tile on a ceiling. Where I go for my tile products, it has the entire line, the entire Mapei line of everything that's available. So I've got gray and white options of modified and unmodified for 5 different kinds of tile. Regular thin set, large format tile, ceiling tile, ultralight. I mean, if you can dream it up, they've got the product there. So when you're shopping for your cement, if you get to a tile supply store instead of a building store, you're probably going to be a lot more happy with your result and a lot more options. So in something like this, you can tile all of the shower in a day, or it can take an entire weekend. Now, if you were to put 2 of these glass strips in there, it could take you 3 days. Or you just buy the right cement for the job, spend the extra couple bucks, and finish it all off in an afternoon. I'll let you be the judge. Now, when I'm mixing cement, generally speaking, the first minute of mixing, I want to have a little bit less product in there than I need, just so I can make sure I can clean out all of the clumps that sit in the corners. Of course, always add water first. There we go. Now I know that dent soup is going to be able to withstand all the rest of the cement that I pour in there. All right. So you only want to mix this once. You don't want to wait 10 minutes where you're supposed to allow it to set up and then come back and go, oh, I need more water, because it's not going to perform properly for you. You've just destroyed your cement. So you want to mix it thin enough, just to the point where when you trowel it, it holds the trowel groove, but it's still sloppy, okay? That way in 10 minutes from now when this is set, it might be a little more firm, but it'll still perform well on the wall. Now we bought this cement to use on our mosaic, but because I like to be efficient, I'm going to do the rest of the wall with it. Just because I don't like mixing just a little bit of cement in a pail. Now, just a little demonstration here. Ready? This is the cement that doesn't sag. There you go. Yeah, I'm using a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel. That's a lot of cement on a wall. Good adhesion. About a 90% contact just by tossing it on the wall like that, and it wasn't slipping anywhere. Great product. This is the white cement. It looks a little gray, doesn't it? But this is the white. And the reason we picked the white is because the glass has just a paper on it, and then all the edges are behind the sheet will actually bring that color forward. So if we use a dark gray cement, your white glass is going to turn really dark gray on you. And we don't want that. Before I put the glass on, and I'm just going to make sure that my edge here is nice and clean. And this is important when you're doing glass. Make sure that this edge here is nice and clean. We're just going to start on the edge here. And the same as the other tile, we'll start right on the base. Okay. Nice and tight. And then I'm going to just lift it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my tool to lift so I'm not pressing against the wall. I'm just going to give it a little bit of pressure. Voila, that's not moving anywhere. When I put the tile above it, I'm going to get exactly the same result. That's not going to move anywhere either. I'm going to already put my grout line there. Done. Right? And so for some of these trickier places, it's hard to reach. You can't get your trowel in and around this corner. And because I was busy building that other wall first, I've let this dry. Feel free to just add your cement to the back of the tile. Okay? Be real liberal here. Hold your trowel at about 75, 80 degrees. And then just run that off. You'll end up getting the same thickness as is on the wall. Okay? Just like that. Do all sides of the hole. All right. Take the extra cement off and then just fire it over there. Done. Okay, so the only other thing you need to know is this. When you're done your tile work, the next day you come back, take all your spacers out, all right? Take a wet sponge and force it in all the lines and clean them all out. The cements that we're using here, within 48 hours, you can wipe them out pretty simply. And it'll actually clean up real nice without any tools or risk of damaging your tile. Also, when you're doing around the sides down the bottom of the tub, you usually do that at the end of the job. Save some of this tea product, okay, from Mapai, and use that down there too. And then you can build backwards, knowing that the tile's not gonna slip and make a big mess. Other than that, patience, patience, patience. Keep your lines level, get a laser level. I can't stress that enough. And you'll have a successful tile job too. So if you like this kind of video, make sure you like it. Ask all the questions in the world you like in the comment section below. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, and we'll see you again next time.